Hello, my name is Steve Power and I'm one of the product specialists here at Pegasus Software. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to talk through how Pegasus Construction Industry Solutions product can help you control the costs on your contracts so that you can bring them in on time and within budget. Pegasus CIS is essentially a contract costing system, and that's what this flow diagram here is showing. We have the contracts file, which is where all the financial information flows into. So if you're interested in seeing the profits on a contract, the costs, the calculated cost to complete, the cash that's owing to you, all of that financial information resides within the contracts file itself. So Pegasus CIS is essentially a contract costing system. There are a number of modules that therefore post information into the contracts file. The first of those here is the contract sales ledger. That allows you to go through and raise revenue against those contracts. And you can do that in two ways. You could raise a direct invoice for any work that's being performed on that contract, in which case that will show as revenue in the contract and the related invoice will end up within the sales ledger within the account system. However, in the construction industry, it's highly likely that you're going to go through the application certification process, in which case the system allows you to go through and record the valuation. It allows you to generate the application, which is sent through to the customer, and then the certificate comes in from the customer, off the back of which you can therefore raise the invoice. So the system will allow you to do both of those processes. It understands that the retention might be held back from the invoices, in which case it would allow you to hold back that retention. It'll allow you to chase that retention so that it is brought in within time. There's a subcontractor's ledger. This is similar to the purchase ledger, but specifically designed for your subcontractors. It allows you to go through and set up your subcontractor, and if you've registered with HMRC for the online services, it will allow you to verify that subcontractor. You press a button within the software, it communicates with the revenue site, and the revenue will then come back and tell you what the tax treatment is for that particular subcontractor. They will either be gross, in which case zero tax will be deducted, they may be at 20% or they may be at 30%. Either way, the revenue site will notify the software the tax treatment for that particular subcontractor. Once you've set up that subcontractor, it then allows you to optionally enter subcontractor orders, and if you enter a subcontractor order, that will appear in the contracts file as a committed cost. The subcontractor then does some work for you, and they might send you an invoice, they might send you an application, they might even send you a timesheet for the work that's being done. Whichever document they send, you record into the system, and that therefore reduces the committed costs on the contract file because you now have an actual cost that's starting to come through. The system will then allow you to go through and pay the subcontractor, and in which case those costs will be reflected within the contracts file itself, and then it allows you to go through at the end of the month, generate the CIS 300 monthly return. And again, this can be submitted through to the revenue using the online services. We have an employees module. This is synchronized with the payroll so that it knows the pay rates for your employees. It then allows you to go through and enter the timesheets for your employees, and it posts both the times and the costs through to the contracts file, and the related timesheets will end up within the payroll so that you pay your employees in the normal way and it generates the pay slips from within the payroll itself. There's also a purchase order processing system. This allows you to go through and raise purchase orders against those contracts, and again this will post those as a committed cost. It will optionally allow you to enter a goods received note, and then you can enter the related purchase invoice. As you enter the related purchase invoice, this can then be posted through to the purchase ledger for payments in the normal way from within that purchase ledger. I say the goods received notes are optional, and the reason for that is you might be ordering stock for a site delivery. So you order today, it's delivered on site tomorrow with the goods received note, and the purchase invoice might arrive at the accounts office the following day. If the goods received note from the site office doesn't get to the accounts office in a timely manner, then you can omit the goods received note stage and simply control the posting from the purchase invoice linked to its purchase order. It also allows you to buy for stock. So if you have your own stock holding, you can order stock in to your own stock holding, and then you can allocate and issue that stock through to the various contracts later. If there's any other costs, then you can directly post them into the contracts file. So it might be that you've got petty cash receipts and the like that relate to the contract file, in which case it will allow you to post those directly to the contracts. Okay, let's go and have a look at the software. Okay, here's the typical user interface for Pegasus CIS. You have this sort of slider bar favorites down the left hand side, and in which case you give your users access to the various options they require. And it's fairly simple to navigate around. If you've got users that need to have access to many other parts of the system, then you might want to use the typical sort of Windows expander tree that allows you to go through and navigate to many options. But you pick and choose. Some users might have this sort of favorite slider bar. Other users might have the Windows navigation tree, or in my case, I'll give myself access to both. Here are each of those modules that we saw in that flow diagram a moment ago. When I said it was a contract costing system, what I really meant by that was that it'll allow you to go through and set up the jobs and analyse the data associated with those jobs. From a sales side, it will allow you to raise invoices, but equally, it will allow you to go through the application certification process. From the purchase side, it allows you to go through and raise your purchase orders, optionally enter the goods received note, and then enter the related purchase invoice. Notice as well, it has an option for external plant hire. This is basically a specialised purchase order where you raise the purchase order, identifying that it's for external plant hire, and then it allows you to go through and enter the number of days that it's expected to be on site. The purpose of that, of course, is that if you've got items that are overdue for return, then the system will give you a report of all plant hire that's overdue for return to its supplier. The labour side allows you to synchronise with the payroll to pull in all your employees with their pay rates, allows you to enter the timesheets and post those timesheets through to the payroll, and if you've got on-costs coming back from the payroll, then it will allow you to synchronise with the payroll and post those on-costs back to the various jobs. Subcontractors allows you to set up the subcontractor and verify them with HMRC. It then allows you to go through and enter the subcontractor orders. Once they've done some work for you, then they might send you applications, invoices or timesheets. You can therefore pay the subcontractor, and at the end of the month, you can generate the CIS 300 monthly return. And finally, we've got the stock control system that allows you to go through and set up your stock records, and once you've got those stock records, you can allocate and issue stock through to the various jobs. Okay, let's start this presentation off by looking at the costing system. Now, there's various ways that we can get into these jobs. We could, for instance, get into the jobs via My Group jobs. In other words, if you were allocated to a group, I don't know, you might be allocated to the Scottish group, for instance, in which case you'll only see the jobs that are related to the Scottish group. You won't see the universe of jobs. In my example, however, I'm going to go into the current jobs and look at the information associated with the current jobs. I'm going to turn off my slider bar and my navigator so that we can see the full information associated with the job. What we can see here is we've got a job number. This is a 10-digit alphanumeric, the job name, who the customer is. Does this job belong to a project? In which case you might have multiple jobs linked into the one project, so you could report at it at a project level, but you could also report on it at an individual job level. What's the order date? What's any order references? What's the expected start date? What's the expected complete date for this particular job? And also it allows you to go through and set up these various analysis codes associated with the job. Now this can be quite useful for analysing the data. For instance, my first analysis code I've set up here allows me to go through and define what type of customer do I have. So I might have customers that are related to the MOD, the NHS, local authority, or they might be private build. When I set those items up to the job, it then allows me to report on it. And a typical report might be, what was the total profit I made on my local authority work over the last 2 years? And what I might find is that that's fairly flat. Okay, what was the total profit that I made over my NHS contracts over the past 2 years? And I might find that those are climbing quite nicely. In which case, maybe it's suggesting that I should tender for more NHS work as opposed to local authority contracts. So you set up these 3 independent sets of analysis codes related to this job, and it allows you to report on them. If I go to the More tab, it allows me to give the job definition in much more detail. It also allows me to store the site address for that job. And that can be quite useful if you're ordering items that need to be delivered direct through the site, in which case I raise the purchase order against this particular job number, and it knows what the site address is for that particular job. If I look at the Settings tab, this allows me to go through and set up the settings specific to this job. So for instance, is there retention? If so, what's the retention percentage? What's the retention release date? It also allows me to go in and put in items such as main contractor discount. I can also have my application terms and my certificate terms. In this example, the application terms is set for 14 days. What that basically means is when I send the application out, I then need to start chasing that application after 14 days, because after 14 days it will start to appear in the age debt reports. Similarly, when the certificate arrives, how long do I need to wait until the payment is made? In this example, I wait 7 days, in which case after 7 days it then starts to appear in the age debt report for this particular contract. If I look at the Notes tab, it allows me to store any amounts of notes associated with this particular job. It also allows me to go through and attach job documents. So there could be a whole range of documents that relate to this particular job. So they might live in all sorts of different places on my network, but I have linked them up to this specific job number. And if I have the relevant viewer, for instance, then the system will allow me to go through and open up that particular document. In this example, I can see that it's a PDF and it's linked to this particular document. It also allows me to go through and show me the summary of my contract sales. So if I look at this contract sales tab, I can see how many times have I applied for money on this particular contract. I can see there's been 9 applications, the last one being on that particular date. What was the total value that I've applied for? So in my example here, I've applied for 200,000 minus the discount and the retention means that my net application is 190,000. In other words, that's the cash that I'm expecting from my customer. How many times have they certified? In this example, they certified all 9 applications and that was the date of the last certificate. However, they disagreed with my application value. I had applied for 200,000, but they've come back and they've only certified 199,000. Minus the discount and the retention means that their net certification is 189,000. In other words, we're currently apart between our application and our certification by £1,500. Let's look at the sales tab and let's see how this bid has been translated into cash balances. How much of that 189,000 has been certified have I invoiced? Well, in this example, you can see that I've invoiced all 189,000. Have I raised any direct invoices? If so, what's the value of those invoices? Giving me the total revenue on this contract plus the VAT to show me the total payments that are due. What cash has been received and therefore currently on this job, what's the balance that's outstanding? So here, for instance, I can see that I'm currently owed £1,400 on this job. If I look at the summary tab, this shows me the summary of the budget costs, what's the order value, and therefore what's the margin I'm looking to make. So in this case, I'm looking to make about 10%, which equates to about £41,000 worth of profit. It shows me what's the retention that's due to me, what's the payment due, payment made, balance outstanding, and it also shows me here what's the total revenue, what's the total cost, and therefore what is the current profit on this job at this moment in time. And what I can see here actually is that I'm making a loss. So that becomes one of the key performance indicators. What's the current profitability on this job? In my case, I'm finding that I'm making a loss of 23,000. If, however, I looked at this job, I might find that I've just bought £40,000 worth of materials. I haven't re-invoiced them onto the customer yet, so yes, I am showing a loss. However, when we get to the end of the month and I re-invoice the customer, it will bring me back into the profit. If that's the case, then this job is not in trouble. However, if this job I'd invoiced everything out to the customer, it's just that there's cost overruns, then this profit figure will be a negative, and those are the jobs that I've actively got to go and manage. Let's have a look at the cost tab. Okay, this shows me the overall cost for the job. We have an original budgeted hours, an original budgeted cost, current budgeted hours, and current budgeted costs. And the reason we're storing that information is that once we're into the contract, it could be that there's been variations that have been applied to the contract, so in which case the budget value and the budgeted hours might have moved away from what the original budgets were. It shows me here the total costs broken down into actual costs, work in progress costs, overhead recovery costs, committee costs from my purchase orders, committee costs from my subcontractor orders, to give me the overall costs on this contract at this moment in time. I can drill down into this. The first thing I can drill down into are the phases. The system allows me to go through and set up any number of phases associated with this job and link them through to this job. So in this example here, you can see that I've got phases for building a car loading ramp, building some cafe and bar extension, building some new warehouses, and a new access road and what have you. Notice as well, I've got some phases here that are for variations. So what I'm really pointing out here, these phases don't have to be typical construction phases. They can be just an analysis. In this case, variation 1 is some analysis to do with extending the car ramp, and variation 2 is some sort of analysis to do with extending the car park. So in other words, it allows me to report on them at specific levels. If we go through and choose a particular phase, then as we saw on the job, for the phase we see its original budgeted cost and hours, its current budgeted costs and hours, and we can see those broken down for this particular phase into actual work in progress, overhead, committed costs from purchase orders and subcontractors' orders to give me the total on this phase. I can drill down further. If I drill down into these cost heads, it allows you to go through and set up any number of these cost heads and link them through to the phase. So here, for instance, we've got things like site labour, a whole range of subcontract work that's going on, together with materials, plant purchases, plant hire, and the like. Here, for instance, I'm looking at the plant hire, and what I can see here is that it's warning me, you're over budget. I can see that the budget is set to 2,500, but the total costs currently are coming in at close to 5,500. So I can see that I'm over budget, but I might not understand how I can possibly be at 5,500. The system allows me to drill down into the transactions. So if I look at the transactions, I can see here, for instance, that I've got 14 days plant hire on purchase order whatever. That's coming at £1,250. There's another 10 days hire on purchase order whatever. That's come in at 2,500. In other words, that's the reason why I'm at 5,500, because these are all the items that I've gone through and I've put onto plant hire. It also has the concept of percentage complete. So for instance, in my example here, I know I'm over budget. In fact, the system is telling me you're 200% of budget at this moment in time. But I'm entering this information here to say that I'm only 75% of the way through the plant hire. So if you can capture this percentage complete, you can record it back into the system, and therefore it will calculate your calculated cost to complete. So in this example, it's saying if you're only 75% of the way through, it calculates my cost to be 7,300, in which case I'm going to overrun my budget by 4,800, and it still says that I've got £1,800 or so still to spend on this. What it can do with this calculated cost to complete is it can roll that up from the plant hire to the phase, and it can roll it up from the phase to the overall totals for the job. So in this example, can you see that the budget for the job is 347,000? However, the calculated cost to complete at the moment are coming in at 345,000. In other words, it's currently projecting that I'm going to bring this in under budget by £1,800. Even though some of the cost heads are over budget, what that is pointing out is that some of the other cost heads are under budget. This calculated cost to complete figure is another one of these figures that are important to allow you to identify the health of a particular job. So they become key performance indicators. What are the sort of reports that we can get from within Pegasus CIS? Well, if I select this print icon, it lists a whole range of reports that are available to me for the current jobs. So let's have a look at one or two of these. Let's look at the contract performance report. If I select this report, I'll change the date to be the current period, and let's make this report a little bit bigger. So what it shows us here, for this current job, the Rothsay Ferry Terminal, it shows us what are the committed costs that we've got from subcontractors and from purchase orders against the various cost heads. It shows me the budget actual variance in value terms, and it also shows me the estimated hours, the actual hours, and the variance of those hours. So a typical sort of report that we'd expect to see. Let's run another report. Let's go through and let's look at our job summary report. There's a range of selection criteria, but I will just take all of those. Let's make the report a little bit bigger. And here we can see, for instance, a list of our jobs that are on the system showing me what's the job, what's the currency for that job, so I can see that that's in sterling, but that's actually in euros. And then I can see the total that's been applied for, gross discount retention net application. What's been certified, gross discount retention net certification. And I can see the payment expected, cash received, balance that's outstanding on this particular job. So again, this is a very useful sort of report showing me the cash that's outstanding. What we're using here is Crystal as a report writing tool. And that basically means that columns can be added to this report, columns can be taken away, or even indeed new reports can be created. So Crystal is a fairly standard sort of reporting tool. What's the next reporting tool we have? Well, I have this list view here. If I make this list view full screen, because I'm on the current jobs, it lists out all the current jobs. And what it shows me here are things like the job name, the description of the job, the start date, the end date of the job, payment due, payment made, balance outstanding. In other words, this list view is very similar to that last report that we looked at. The advantage of list views are that you as users can simply modify what's being displayed. For example, let's remove description 2 and description 3. What I can do is I can simply right click and I can hide columns. So if I hide description 2, description 3 and maybe the start and end date, then it removes them from this view. If I want to add totals, let's say I want to see a total of the costs. I can simply right click, I can add a running sum. So now I can see the total of the costs across all my current jobs. Maybe I want to see the total of the cash that's owed to me. I simply go to that column, right click, and add another running sum. So I can now see the total of the cash that's owed to me across all of my current jobs. Let's say that I don't want to have the customer account code, I want to have the customer name because TRS0001 means nothing to me. So what I can do is I'm going to hide the customer account code. Can you see here on the left hand side, when we went through and looked at those 8 or 9 tabs of information, all of that information is displayed here. So if you want to display any of that information, then you simply tick the column. So for instance, if you wanted to see what's been applied for, I simply tick what's been applied for. If you wanted to see what's been certified, then I'd simply go through and tick this column that's been certified. So any of the information you saw on those 7 or 8 tabs can be added into the view. Better than that, I'm going to go outside the current form, I'm going to go to the customer form, and I'm going to get the customer name. Now we know that this list view is showing us the cash that's outstanding, so what I might also want to get is the contact name, the telephone number, the email address, the invoice terms, and add them all into this list view because I'm using it to chase cash. So now I can see that's the job, that's the customer, that's the description of the job, and that's the total cash that's owed to me at this moment in time. Once I've created this list view, I can save it away so that I don't have to create it next time. I would simply call up, I don't know, Steve's cash outstanding list view, in which case I can see the totals that are owed to me quickly and simply. What we tend to find is when a customer's implemented Pegasus CIS, they would have gone through and they would create many list views. If you go into the accounts department, for instance, they're bound to have a list view like this that shows them the cash that's outstanding, but they'll also have another list view that says, show me what's been applied for but not certified, or show me what's been certified but not paid, because from the accounts department perspective, it's all about chasing cash. If you go into the projects team, for instance, you might see that they have a list view that says, show me all the jobs that are due to start in the next 3 months and show me all the jobs that are due to finish in the next 3 months, because from their perspective, it's all about going through and shifting resources from one site to the next site. If you go into the QS team, they'll probably have a list view that says, for this job, show me all the costs that I incurred since the last application. Because from their perspective, they're going to use those to build up the next application. So pretty well every form within Pegasus CIS has the ability to create one of these list views. Okay, what else can you do with a list view? I was with one of my colleagues yesterday and they asked me a question. Steve, your company deals with trading resources, doesn't it? And I go to them and say, yeah, well, I think we've got about a dozen contracts with them. Why'd you ask? And they say, well, they're not paying us, so they're paying you. I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know. Tomorrow morning, when I get into the office, I'm going to load up this list view that shows me the cash that's outstanding. The problem with this list view, however, it's showing me all of my customers. What I can do is I can highlight anything in this grid, in this case, trading resources, and filter. So I don't want you to show me all of the jobs that I've got on. I only want you to show those with trading resources. And as I suspected, yes, there are a dozen jobs with trading resources. How much do they owe me? Oh, there's 4 jobs, and those 4 jobs that have balances outstanding, they amount to £33,700. So in which case, maybe from this point of view, I'm going to go through and I'm going to print this list view, and I'm going to give it to the project managers to get them to go through and chase the cash on those contracts. So the second reporting tool we have within Pegasus CIS are list views, which you can print. I said we can save them away. I'm going to go to my list view, and I'm going to call up my retention due list view. And this retention due list view shows me all jobs where the retention balance is greater than 0. The balance outstanding might be 0. In other words, we've done the final measure. They're paid whatever they're going to pay, except they're holding back onto the retention. So in which case, I can see what the retention value is. I can see the total value of retention that's owed to me. The only problem with this list view is I can't see the date. So let's go through and let's add on my retention due on date. Now I can see the date the retention's due, and in fact I've sorted it into date order so that I can see there's half a dozen transactions for November, a dozen or so for December, showing me each of the retention values that are outstanding. Now, if I was the finance director, I might not want to see individual transactions, I might want to see a cash flow. So in other words, the quickest way to achieve a cash flow, I guess, would be to go through and send this information to Excel. If I send it to Excel, that creates a spreadsheet in Excel that shows me all of those jobs, and I can see the retention value, I can see the date that the retention is due, and I can see the total retention is 364,000. Now once it's in Excel, I could simply group it together by month number. And if I do that, I can then get a spreadsheet that's along these lines. There we go, 34,000 for November, 54,000 for December, showing me the total amount that's due over the next 12 months, for instance. So we can simply get this information out and post it directly through to Excel. So that second reporting tool is not only a printing tool, it's also a tool that allows you to interface with Excel. We have one final reporting tool, and that's within Excel itself. Notice in my version of Excel, I have a new option called XRL. XRL is a product that's provided by Pegasus that allows you to create list views within Excel itself. Let me show you. I'm simply going to go through and I'm going to create a report. So I'm in Excel and it says, right, which product? Well, I want to take it from Pegasus CIS. I'm going to go to the jobs table, and from the jobs table, I'm going to take the job number, the job name and the job description. I'm going to take, I guess, let's see what's been applied for. What's been certified, what is the total revenue, and what is the cash received. And if I say OK to that, can you see it's now displaying that information directly within Excel? Once it's in Excel, I can now manipulate this data in all sorts of different ways and produce graphs and all sorts of information. So it means that we don't have to be logged into Pegasus CIS to get this information out. If I've got QS people, for instance, that want to extract information out and manipulate that information in Excel, well then they can simply create this sort of reporting type mechanism. Okay, is there any other advantages with using the XRL tool? Well, there is. What you can do is you can create predefined spreadsheets. So for instance here, my workbook here, the first worksheet actually contains a menu that takes me to other parts. So for instance, if I select this cost value reconciliation option, that will take me across through to another spreadsheet. Notice the hourglass is going, and what this is doing here is this is actually drawing the information directly in from within CIS. But can you see that I've pre-configured this spreadsheet? Let's change the date. I'm going to change the date on this to be my current period, and I'm now going to get it to recalculate based upon that period. It's now retrieving all the information up to that particular date, and now I can see that I've got the job number, the job name, the current valuation that's on that job, what's being held back within retention, what's the total payments due, payments received, balance outstanding, order value, current calculated profit on this job, calculated cost to complete, month costs, year costs, total costs on that particular contract. And it lists them for all of the contracts that I have on the go at this moment in time. show me the overall totals that are on there. Now, we have pre-configured this, but Pegasus XRL is populating each of these fields. If I go back to my main menu, we can look at some of the other options that are available to us. So for instance, if I want to look at work in progress on a job, I can select the specific job. It will list out all of the transactions that are currently in work in progress for that selected job, and it will show me the overall totals for that particular job. So if you've got predefined reports that need to be presented through to the management team at the end of the month, then you create them once within Pegasus XRL, and then this will allow you to report on it. The only thing you change is the period month by month. So there is a third reporting tool in Pegasus, which is our XRL product. Okay, that completes what I was looking to cover in this particular session. Let's recap. Pegasus CIS is a contract costing system where all the costs and all the hours go into the contracts file. So we've got a central place to report on. That information is being filtered through from the range of other modules that feed information into the contracts file. So we have a contract sales ledger that posts the revenue. We have a subcontractors ledger and a purchase ledger that allows us to go through and capture purchase orders and subcontractors orders and post committed costs into the contract that then get converted to actual costs as the related invoices flow in. We have a timesheet system that allows us to record all the time and post those costs through to the contract, and any other costs that are being collected are posted directly into the contracts file. Pegasus CIS is a contract costing system. For further information, please go to pegasus.co.uk. Thank you for taking time to listen to this short overview of Pegasus CIS system.